The knock at midnight. It was a cold night on the edge of the colony world, Altera 9. The wind howled outside Daniel's small cabin. He was alone, drinking warm tea by the fire, wrapped in a thick blanket. The human man had come to this planet, for peace, away from war, away from pain. But tonight something was different. Knock, knock. Daniel froze. No one ever came here. His cabin was far from the village, surrounded by old trees and silence. He stood up slowly. The knock came again. Soft but desperate. Knock, knock, knock. He grabbed his old plasma pistol from the table just in case. He moved toward the door and opened it carefully. What he saw shocked him. A woman stood there, shivering. Her skin was smooth and slightly glowing, a pale silver shade with faint blue veins. Her eyes were large, glowing violet in the dark. Two small children clung to her legs. Their faces were thin. They looked hungry, scared, and weak. The woman opened her mouth. Her voice was soft but full of pain. "I will warm your bed, human. Please, my children need a father." Daniel blinked, confused. What?" he stammered. She lowered her head. "I don't want to sleep with you. Not like that. But I have nowhere else to go. My children are cold. I can keep you warm. Just let us in." Daniel looked at the children. One of them coughed, a dry, painful sound. Their clothes were torn and dirty. He felt something deep in his chest. Pity and anger, not at them, but at whoever had let this happen. "Come inside," he said at last. The alien woman stepped in, her bare feet trembling. The kids followed, hugging each other tightly. Daniel closed the door and turned up the heat. He gave them a blanket and pointed to the fire. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Jera," she whispered. "These are my children, Nelu and Ronnie." Daniel nodded. "I'm Daniel." He brought out soup from the small pot on the stove and handed it to them. The children grabbed the bowls and started eating fast. Too fast. Jera tried to slow them down. "They haven't eaten in days," she said softly. Daniel sat down again, watching them. "Why are you here, Jera? Why come to me?" "I heard stories," she said, not meeting his eyes. "They say the human who lives alone helps people. I had nowhere else to go." Daniel sighed. "Where's their father?" Jera was silent for a moment, then she looked up. "Dead. Long ago, and the others. They call me a disgrace. No one will help a widow, not one with cursed children." Daniel frowned. "Cursed?" She shook her head. "It's just what they say. Lies. But lies spread faster than truth." There was a long silence. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind grew louder. Inside, the small room felt warm, but something in the air was heavy. Jera suddenly stood. "If you don't want us to stay, we'll leave in the morning. I will not beg." Daniel stood too. "You and your children will stay tonight. No one leaves in that cold." She looked at him. Her violet eyes sparkled with emotion. She bowed, her head slowly. "Thank you, human." Later that night, Daniel lay on his bed. He could hear the soft breathing of the children asleep by the fire. Jera sat nearby, awake. "You don't trust me," she said quietly. "I don't know you," he replied. "I understand, but I will prove I mean no harm. I only want my children to live." Daniel turned his head. "Why say you'd warm my bed?" Jera gave a sad smile. "It is what a widow is expected to offer in return. Food, shelter. Nothing is free on this planet. I thought you would understand that." Daniel felt a sharp pain in his heart. She had come ready to give herself away just to save her children. "You don't have to do that," he said. She looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I'm human," he said simply. As the fire dimmed and the wind howled outside, Daniel watched over his strange new guests. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but something inside told him. This night had changed everything. Simple knock at midnight had opened a door not just to his cabin, but maybe to something far greater. Morning came with a quiet sun rising over the cold hills of Altera 9. Frost clung to the windows of Daniel's cabin. Inside, it was peaceful. The alien children, Nelu and Ronnie, were still asleep under thick blankets by the fire. Daniel stood near the window, staring at the snowy trees beyond. Behind him, he heard soft footsteps. It was Jera. She walked silently, her silver skin glowing faintly in the early light. Her long white hair had been brushed. She looked calmer, but her eyes were tired. "You didn't sleep," Daniel said. Jera shook her head. "Mothers sleep only when danger is gone. I still feel it, all around." Daniel handed her a hot mug of tea. She held it carefully, as if not used to kindness. "You said last night, your husband died," Daniel began. She nodded slowly. "How?" he asked gently. Jera sat down. Her eyes stared into the flames. "He was killed in the Eastern War," she said, "but not as a soldier, as a raider." Daniel raised his eyebrows. "My husband was not a good man," she continued. "He led a group that stole, hurt, and burned. He took from other tribes. He hurt many women, even from his own kind. When he died, many celebrated." She closed her eyes. "But I was still his mate, so they blamed me. They said I must be like him. They called my children unclean, said we carry the curse of monsters." Daniel sat down across from her, shocked. "You were punished for his crimes?" She nodded. "My own people turned on me. I begged them for food, for shelter. They told me to leave, or worse." Daniel looked at the children sleeping peacefully. "So you ran." "I had no choice," Jera whispered. "They would have taken my daughter, sold her. My son? They said boys like him grow into monsters." Daniel felt a fire rising in his chest. Not anger at Jera, but at the cruelty she had endured. "You did the right thing," he said. Jera looked at him, surprised. "You protected your children. That's what any good parent would do." A tear slid down her cheek. "No one has ever said that to me," she said quietly. Later, the children woke up. Ronnie, the younger one, crawled into Jera's lap. Nelu watched Daniel carefully but didn't speak. Daniel knelt and gave them both pieces of fruit and bread. "Eat slowly," he said. "There's plenty more." Ronnie smiled shyly. Nelu just nodded. Jera leaned close to Daniel. "He doesn't speak much," she whispered. "He stopped talking after they took our home." Daniel nodded. "Maybe he'll talk again, when he feels safe." By noon, Daniel took them outside. The snow was soft underfoot. He showed the children how to make small snow shelters. They giggled quietly for the first time in days. Jera stood nearby, her arms wrapped around herself, watching. "Why are you helping us?" she asked suddenly. Daniel looked at her. "You don't owe me anything. You have no reason to care." Daniel paused, thinking. Then he said, "I came to this planet to be alone, to forget my past. But maybe I was wrong." Jera tilted, her head. "I was a soldier," Daniel said. "I've seen people suffer, lost my family in the Terran plague. For a long time I thought helping others was useless. That kindness didn't matter." He looked at her now. "But last night I saw something different. A mother, braver than any warrior I knew, and children who still have hope. That's worth something." That evening after dinner, the cabin felt warmer. Daniel gave Jera some clothes, basic human tunics, clean and warm. She was shocked by the softness of the fabric. "You have given me much," she said, "and asked for nothing." Daniel shrugged. "That's just human nature." Jera looked down. "Maybe not all humans, but you are different." Before going to bed, Nelu finally spoke his first word in days. "Good night," he said softly to Daniel. Jera's eyes filled with tears. Daniel smiled. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, not just shelter from the cold, but healing from the pain. 3 days had passed since Jera and her children arrived at Daniel's cabin. In that short time, something had changed. Not just in the home, but inside Daniel himself. The once quiet cabin, built for silence and solitude, now echoed with small footsteps, soft voices, and the laughter of children who were slowly learning how to smile again. But peace doesn't last long on Althera 9, not when rumors begin to spread. It started with a visit from a local trader named Marn, an old friend of Daniel's who traveled between settlements. He dropped off supplies as usual, but paused when he saw the alien woman standing at the window with a child in her arms. Marn narrowed his eyes. "You've taken her in?" he asked, nodding toward Jera. Daniel didn't answer. Marn leaned closer. "She's a widow from the Red Spine tribe, isn't she? Her husband was one of the cursed raiders." Daniel frowned. "She's not her husband. That's not how people here think," Marn said darkly. "Her kind. Once they enter your home, they don't leave. I let her in because she was freezing, with kids." Marn scoffed. "So what now? You going to raise alien kids like they're yours?" Daniel didn't reply, but the seed of doubt had been planted. That night, as he fixed the broken fence outside, Daniel watched Jera gather firewood while Nelu and Ronnie played nearby. The kids looked stronger already, laughing as they kicked snow and chased each other. Jera noticed him watching. She walked over, her arms full of wood. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Daniel wiped his hands. "People are talking about you." Jera looked away. "They always talk." "You're not safe here," he said slowly. "If they decide you're a threat, they might come." Jera nodded. "I can leave." "No," Daniel said quickly. "That's not what I meant." He took a deep breath. I didn't plan for this." Jera studied him for a moment. Then she said something that surprised him. "I didn't come to make you a father." He looked confused. "I came to ask for help. But the truth is, I didn't expect you to say yes. No one ever does. I thought you'd give us one night, maybe two, then send us away." Daniel didn't know what to say. "I will leave if you ask me to," she said. "But if we stay, I will work. I will clean, cook, hunt, and I will never ask for your bed again." She turned to walk back inside. But Daniel called out, "I'm not sending you away." Later that evening, Daniel found a small wooden box on his doorstep, no name, just a symbol, an old tribal mark. He opened it. Inside was a dead rat, and a single word, burned into the wood: "Traitor." Daniel stared at it, heart pounding. Someone in the village had sent this. He wasn't just helping Jera anymore. He was being watched. Inside, he didn't tell her about the box. Not yet. Instead, he sat by the fire as Jera braided Ronnie's hair and Nelu drew shapes in the dirt with a stick. Daniel's eyes drifted to the children. He saw the way they looked at him now, like he mattered, like he was part of something. Strange warmth filled his chest. Then Nelu said something unexpected. "Papa, can I show you my drawing?" Daniel blinked. He looked at Jera. Her eyes were wide. She hadn't told the boy to say that. Daniel smiled softly. "Of course." Nelu brought him a small rough drawing of a cabin, a tall figure, and two small children holding hands. Daniel recognized himself. He knelt down and hugged the boy. In that moment, the fear, the rumors, and the doubt faded. Because, deep down, Daniel knew this was no longer just a rescue. It was a beginning. The snow outside had begun to melt, but danger was just starting to rise. Daniel had started rebuilding the back shed with Nelu's help. Ronnie collected firewood with a basket nearly bigger than her. Jera cooked warm soup, humming softly. A song Daniel didn't understand, but one that made his heart ache. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something like peace. But peace never stays long on a world like Althera 9, not when shadows from the past come walking back. It happened just after sunset. The wind carried a strange smell, smoke and something sharp like burnt stone. Daniel stepped out to check the perimeter, his hand resting on the handle of his plasma pistol. He saw nothing, but the forest was too quiet. No birds, no wind. No sound. Then came the first howl. Not animal. Not human. A hunter's call. Inside the cabin, Zara froze. She knew that sound. Her skin turned pale. Her hands trembled. No, she whispered. They found us. Daniel rushed back in. Who? Zara grabbed her children and pulled them into a corner. The Bone Skinners, she said. My husband's old war clan. They are not men. They are beasts. They will take the children and burn everything. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Not while I'm breathing. The first torch appeared on the hill, then another, then 3. Figures, in bone armor, faces painted with ash and blood, moved silently through the snow. They were not here to talk. Daniel turned off the lights. He handed Zara a knife and pointed to a trapdoor in the floor. Hide. Don't make a sound. Zara hesitated. You can't fight them alone. Daniel pulled out a small satchel from under his bed. Inside were 3 grenades and a compact pulse rifle. I've done it before, he said. Outside, the Bone Skinners reached the edge of the fence. One stepped forward, a tall brute with curved horns on his helmet. He shouted in a harsh alien tongue, voice echoing through the trees. Zara listened from below the floorboards. They say you've taken their blood pledges, mate. They demand I return to them. Daniel stood just outside the door, rifle in. Hand, you're not going anywhere, he said calmly. The horned leader pointed his spear toward the house. Then the children burn. Daniel fired first. The blast hit the lead warrior in the chest, knocking him back. The others charged. Daniel moved fast, diving behind the snowbank, firing short bursts. The snow turned red. 2 went down. The third charged him directly with a curved blade. Daniel rolled, pulled a grenade, and tossed it behind him. Boom! Smoke filled the air. Screams echoed through the trees, but Daniel was bleeding now, cut along his side. He didn't stop. Because under his cabin floor, 2 small children were holding each other, trembling, and an alien widow waited for a man who had once promised only peace, but now fought like a soldier again. Inside, Zara gripped the knife tightly. Ronnie whimpered and Nelu held her. Then the floor creaked. Not Daniel. Another sound. A boot. Someone had slipped past. The door opened above them. A Bone Skinner stood at the trapdoor, smiling. Zara leapt. With a scream, she stabbed upward, slicing his wrist. The knife fell. Nelu grabbed it and slashed wildly. The hunter howled and fell backward. Zara climbed out after him. She stood over the dying warrior, blood on her hands, breathing hard. She turned and saw Daniel stumbling through the smoke, bruised and bleeding, but alive. They stood in silence. The cabin burned behind them, but the children were safe. Zara looked at Daniel, her face fierce. I told you I'd protect them, she said. Daniel smiled, weak but proud. So did I. Flames lit the sky. The cabin Daniel had built with his own hands, the walls that had kept him warm through the coldest nights, was gone. Smoke curled into the stars, carrying with it pieces of the past. Zara and the children stood beside him, wrapped in blankets. The remains of the Bone Skinners lay in the snow behind them. The danger was over. But something inside Daniel still burned, not from wounds, from questions. He looked at Zara. She hadn't cried. She hadn't spoken much. She stood like a statue, eyes locked on the rising smoke. Zara, he said gently, we need to talk. They walked to a nearby cave where Daniel had once stored emergency supplies. It would serve as a temporary shelter. Inside, the fire crackled low, and the children slept beside it, exhausted. Zara sat across from Daniel, her face lit by the fire's soft glow. You were ready for them, Daniel said. You knew they'd come. Zara didn't deny it. Yes. Why? Didn't you tell me sooner? She looked into the flames. Because I didn't want you to know who I truly was. Daniel waited. Finally, she spoke. I was born to the Red Spine clan, she began. My family had status, power. My father was a war chief. My mother a battle seer. I was raised to be strong, proud. I was not supposed to feel fear. She paused. But then I was given to a man I did not choose, a warlord, strong, respected, feared, my husband. Her voice cracked slightly. He did not love. He owned. He called me trophy. To him, I was not a wife, not a mother, just proof of victory. Daniel's jaw clenched. He didn't interrupt. I gave him children, but he wanted more. Sons who would grow into killers. He beat Nelu when he refused to fight. He said Ronnie's tears were weakness. And me, I was punished for every smile they showed. She looked up. When he died in battle, I should have been free, but instead I was cursed. His clan blamed me for his fall. Said I softened him. Said my children were traitors. She took a deep breath. I ran. Not just to protect them, but to bury that past. I never told you the truth because I thought, if you knew what I came from, you'd see me the same way they did. Daniel stared at her, silent. Then he said quietly, I don't see a curse. I see a survivor. Jera blinked. I've known warriors, he continued, but most of them fought because they were told to. You fought because you had no choice. You ran not to hide, but to save something good. Your children. Yourself. Jera's eyes shimmered. Do you believe I can be something more than what they made me? Daniel moved closer. You already are. Outside the cave, the stars were quiet, but inside, for the first time, Jera let her tears fall. And Daniel didn't look away. The next morning, Daniel began building again. Not a small cabin this time, but a larger one, with 2 extra rooms. One for the children, one for Jera. When she asked why, he simply said, if you're staying, you deserve more than just a corner. Jera paused. And if we don't want separate rooms? Daniel smiled, but didn't answer. Ronnie came running to him, holding a small flower she had found. For you, Papa. Daniel took it, heart full. The cabin might have burned, but something more important had begun to grow in the ashes. The new cabin stood unfinished, but its walls were strong. Daniel worked day and night, building with rough wood and stubborn hands. Nelu carried tools, Ronnie fetched water, and Jera wove soft mats from forest reeds. They didn't speak much of the past anymore, not because they forgot, but because they were trying to grow something new. Still, something heavy lingered in the air. A storm was coming, but not from the sky, from the village. It began with a message. A small drone landed by the cabin one morning, its blinking red light catching Daniel's eye. He opened the attached scroll. Daniel Cole, you are summoned before the council of settlers. Bring the alien female and her children. You will explain yourself. Jera stood behind him, silent. They're coming, she said. Daniel nodded. Let them. The council gathering took place under the great tree in the center of the human-alien settlement, where peace talks and trade once bloomed. But today, peace was absent. The villagers formed a circle. Cold eyes, whispered judgments. Daniel stood, tall. Jera stood beside him. Nelu and Ronnie hid behind their cloaks. The head elder, a stern woman named Maris, raised her hand. Daniel, she said, you have broken the agreement. No outsider blood is to be mixed with human settlers unless approved by vote. Murmurs echoed through the crowd. She is no threat, Daniel said. She asked for help. I gave it. She brings danger, another elder snapped. You were attacked. Your home was burned. And for what? An alien widow? Jera stepped forward. You fear what you do not understand. My children are not your enemies. They will grow into weapons, a man shouted, like their father. Then, I will raise them differently, Daniel replied. His voice shook with emotion. I will raise them better. Maris's eyes narrowed. And what of your loyalty to your own kind? Daniel paused. Then he said the one thing no one expected. This is my family now. Gasps, whispers. Even Jera looked at him stunned. Daniel kept speaking. I did not choose this because I was forced to. I chose it because it felt right. These children call me father, and I call them mine. He looked at Jera. She never begged. She never manipulated. Me, she survived, and I am proud to stand beside her. Maris turned to the crowd. Then you must face the cost. What cost? Supplies will stop. You will no longer be welcome in trade. No protection, no medicine. You choose her, then you survive, like her. A long silence. Jera whispered, Daniel, we can go. Start over again. I don't want you to lose everything. But Daniel shook his head. I've lost before. I've buried people I loved. I've walked away from war, from noise, from pain. But this, he pointed at her, at the children. This is worth staying for. The council gave their final word. Then let him have his alien family. Alone. The crowd parted. No one clapped. No one stopped them, but no one followed either. Back at the cabin, Jera placed her hand on Daniel's arm. You didn't have to do that. I did, he said simply, because they offered me a choice. And I chose you. That night in the new half-built cabin, there was no fear, no regret, just the quiet sound of firewood cracking, of Ronnie humming in her sleep, and of Nelu tracing stars on the wall with chalk. Jera sat close beside Daniel. Are you afraid of what comes next? She asked. He smiled. No. And for the first time, neither was she. The wind had changed on Althera 9. It no longer howled with cold. It carried warmth now. Wood smoke, cooking fires, the sound of children's laughter echoing through the valley. Daniel's cabin was complete. Not just rebuilt, but transformed. Wider, taller, stronger. With 3 rooms, 2 fireplaces, and a wide porch that faced the sunrise. But it wasn't the cabin that made it a home. It was the people inside it. A year had passed since the council cast him out. Daniel was no longer welcome in the village. His name, once spoken with respect, was now whispered in disapproval. No more trade caravans stopped by. No more invitations came. He should have felt isolated. But he didn't. Because now, every morning, he woke up to Ronnie's tiny voice calling, Papa, as she climbed onto his chest. Because Nelu, once silent and broken, now practiced reading by the fire, sounding out earth words with determination. Because Jera now smiled freely. She no longer bowed her head, no longer waited for rejection. She had found her place, and Daniel had found something he didn't know he'd been missing. A family. But peace is never easy. It was early spring when the real test arrived. A shuttle landed nearby, unmarked, silver and silent. From it stepped envoys, not from the settlement, but from the United Earth Front, military representatives. Government voices, the kind of people who wore rules like armor. They had come for Daniel. You left service without final clearance, said Commander Lai, a sharp-jawed woman with hard eyes. You've refused re-entry and rejected all alliance orders. And now we hear rumors that you've adopted an alien widow and her offspring. Daniel stood calmly at the edge of his field, shovel in hand. They're not rumors, he said. They're truth. Do you understand how this looks? Yes. It looks like I chose peace. Lai stepped closer. We're not here to argue your lifestyle, but your case has become political. Humans mixing with post-conflict alien bloodlines sets a precedent, and the Council of Worlds is watching. So, Daniel said, so, we need you to make a statement. Public. Disown the relationship. Say you offered temporary aid. Nothing more. Daniel stared. Then he laughed. Quietly, bitterly. You want me to say my family is a mistake? It's for the greater good. Ronnie peeked out the window. Nelu stood behind her. Jera appeared at the door, silent, strong. Daniel met the commander's eyes. No deal. Lai's voice turned cold. Then you'll be listed as rogue, off-grid. Your Earth citizenship revoked. If another war comes, don't expect help. Daniel stepped forward. I fought your war. I bled for Earth. And when I asked for peace, you gave me silence. He pointed toward the cabin. They gave me a reason to keep living. If being human means walking away from them, then maybe I don't want to be human by your definition. The envoys left without another word. That night, Daniel told Zara everything. She didn't cry. She simply laid her head on his shoulder and said, I would have left if you asked. I know, he whispered, but I never will. Seasons passed, and something strange began to happen. People started arriving. First, a tired alien woman with a scar on her face and 3 children. Then a human man who'd lost his own family in the colony wars. Then a young couple, alien and human, afraid to marry because of village rules. They came quietly, knocked on the door, asked no questions, just said, We heard what you did. Daniel welcomed them all. And where the cabin once stood alone, small huts began to rise. Fields grew. Voices sang. Children of every skin color and shape played together. And soon the council could no longer ignore what had happened. A new village had grown. One morning, as Daniel taught Ronnie how to plant seedlings, Nelu ran to him with a wooden box. Someone left this outside, he said. Inside was a letter. We were wrong. You were right. What you built is what we claim to stand for but never dared to do. You're not a traitor. You're a pioneer. At the bottom was the seal of the Council of Settlers. Jera watched Daniel read it. Are they coming back for you? Daniel smiled and handed her the note. No, they're coming back to learn. That night, a celebration took place under the stars. Alien drums, human flutes. Children danced. Adults wept quietly with joy. Jera wore a new woven dress made by the village women. Her silver skin sparkled under the moonlight. As the fire crackled, she walked to Daniel and offered her hand. He took it. Before the crowd, Jera spoke. A world that cursed me, you gave me hope. In a place that feared my children, you gave them names. In a life I thought was over, you began something new. Then, with tears in her eyes, she whispered, You didn't just warm my bed, human. You warmed my soul. Daniel kissed her hand and replied, You didn't ask for love, but you gave me a reason to love again. And so, the man who once lived alone, the widow who once begged at his door, and the children who once had no future became the heart of something greater than any army, greater than any flag. They became a family, and from that love, a new world quietly bloomed.